Hello, and welcome to Vendor Trash. Is the title a reference to my opinions, my drawing skills, or both? That's for you to decide.
Yeah, we're gonna take things easy this week with a ranking video. But not just any ranking video, a ranking video about a subject I am completely unqualified to offer commentary on: arena maps. I know there's a lot more nuance to them, but so many kind of just strike me as big open room with some pillars. But maybe I can scrounge together at least a few interesting things to say, and if my commentary is totally backwards, well, you can enjoy the comedic value I'm providing to you. Also of note is that since it was added as an option for earning vicious mounts, I've only done solo shuffle, which for whatever reason only has like 10 of the 16 maps or so. I assume it's because certain classes that do better on those maps also do better in non-pre-made environments, or something. I don't know, and I don't care. Keep them all in. I'd prefer the variety. Heck, I think regular arena has a rotation now, which seems similarly stupid to me. Anyway, on to the list. We're starting things off with the only arena map to ever be removed, Ring of Valor. Sadly, I never got to experience playing in this one, as it was only available from Wrath into early mop, though had to be disabled for about 5 months of that tenure due to a lot of bugs. The environment can still be experienced through the Horde's version of the Brawlers Guild. This may have been the most unique map they implemented. Teams would start out on elevators that slowly lifted them up to the arena floor, and would do so a mere 10 yards from each other so that you could instantly get into combat. There were 2 pillars that would move up and down, changing line of sight, as well as spikes that would activate when the pillars changed, and firewalls that would occasionally turn on, which would damage anyone standing in them. That's a lot of gimmicks for one map. I believe the final iteration of the map cut out a lot of those and simply had 4 pillars that would change, and with players starting on opposite ends. I absolutely think the original version sounds like too much, and environmental damage probably just shouldn't be a thing in Arena. But I actually think an arena where you start out right next to the enemy team is a really cool idea that I wish they'd bring back. Yes, it'd be massively unfair to certain classes, but I don't care. They have 16 other maps where they can start far away. At the bottom of my actual list would be Tiger's Peak. An arena is set in the Temple of the White Tiger area of Kunlai Summit, and added in Missa Pandaria. It consists of 2 pillars and 2 raised platforms that you can run onto from the outside, but only jump down from on the inside. Also, and this never really occurred to me until I read it, but this arena is not left-right symmetrical. One wall is completely curved, and the other has a rectangular space on it. But why do I low-key hate spawning into this one? Well, 2 reasons. As I've often stated before, I'm not a big fan of snow and the cold. I get enough of that pain in real life. And second are those side platforms. I just don't really enjoy how matches tend to feel when they revolve around them, and I'm not smart enough to really know why. Maybe it's just too much line of sight headache for me. In 15th, we have the Ruins of Lordaeron. This was the first map added after Arena's original implementation, and the 3rd overall. It came in the Burning Crusade, and is situated in the above ground section of the Undercity, though you wouldn't be able to actually find it in the overworld. And since it hasn't been updated, it's visually the oldest map we have nowadays. Each team starts in a small alcove that opens into the main circular space. In the middle, you have a stone grave that functions as a pillar and a ramp from the longer sides. To the left, for one side, and right for the other, we have a mound of small graves, some of the larger ones serving as small pillars. Though I had to check that on the wiki because to this day I wasn't actually sure if they did that. And on the opposite side, you have a very sludge-heavy area with a tipped-over wagon that might also be a pillar? Again, I'm not sure. Which all speaks to my biggest problem with this map. All of the gameplay objects are actually too natural to the environment, to the point that they don't really stick out. Even the central grave is kind of hard to precisely know the limits of until your character is screaming error messages at you. It's not a big deal, but it is enough to knock it down a few ranks. Still, it is a fun environment, and I'm kind of nostalgic for it. I think it would benefit massively from an update akin to the ones the other TBC maps received. It'd look great and probably fix those other issues. In 14th, we have Dalaran Sewers. Added in Wrath of the Lich King, this arena can actually be seen through a grate in the floor in the underbelly of Dalaran. Teams begin in pipes in opposite corners that they can jump out of or eventually be flushed out of. Then you have a squarish arena with a raised square platform in the middle. Originally, there were pillar crates on the near corners of the platform with steps on the far corners. In late mop, the crates were moved to the far corners and the stairs were added in the other 2 corners, which makes getting trapped in the outer square less punishing. It's also currently the only dynamic arena, as in the very center there is a circle where water will occasionally pour out of to force players away and temporarily block line of sight, though this is telegraphed quite far in advance. I do like how unique this map is, even if my experience with it has been more frustrating than with some others, with it being conducive to long chase sequences. And I like the roleplay element of having the city's waste wash down over you in the middle of a match. Very glorious. In 13th place, we have Blackrook Hold Arena. This one is located in Val'sharah and was added with Legion. I actually remember the area fairly well, for the free-for-all PvP world quest located here that would award 500 honor, which was fun at times and often frustrating because the mobs that give percent would only spawn if there was one or fewer players there, but there would always be some stupid rogue sitting in stealth preventing the mob from spawning, and forcing you to either get ganked, try in vain to pop them out of stealth, or leave and come back later. None of that has anything to do with the actual arena though. The area is basically a big circle with 2 starting alcoves and a third in between, each of which consists of a central gate and 2 openings on the sides. Fun story, back when I actually conned my friends into doing a bit of arena to help me with the grind, they'd never actually gotten this one before, and both tried running through the middle section at the start. They both got comedically upset, I laughed, it was great. The center of the map features a raven statue that functions as a pillar, and on one side, an arch with a ramp on the inside and a drop on the outside. Everything in the middle is fine in my opinion. What annoys me are the side rooms that people, especially warlocks and mistweavers, like to hide inside. And the gates are narrow enough that they can get really tricky with the line of sight. Kind of annoying. And my last beef is with the loading screen. I don't know, something about how the Night Elf woman's hand and her sword are interacting doesn't seem correct to me. Like it's clipping, or she's just absurdly strong and resting the guard on her last 2 fingers. It shouldn't bother me that much, but it does. In 12th place we have Nokudon Proving Grounds, the sole arena granted to us in Dragonflight, located in the Onaran Plains, specifically the same main area of Nokudon Hold where you fight the last boss of the Nokud offensive. This place has a fairly unique layout with small ramps next to each waiting area, a long but fairly narrow wall down the middle, and a pillar midway down either side. I appreciate this one for being bright and fairly spacious, but it's not my favorite either. There are technically 5 pillars for line of sight stuff to happen, and I feel like it's usually not to my advantage. But the 2 things that really kneecap this map's ranking are that it reminds me of that awful dungeon, and that we have Militia announcing it. She's really annoying, and she's a Drakthir, which are already a hard sell for me, so she just makes me like Drakthir less. So while I appreciate Blizz getting more experimental with the design, I wind up not enjoying this map as much as others. 11th place goes to Ring of Trials. This was one of the 2 arena maps that came out with the introduction of the activity in the Burning Crusade, and is about as vanilla as you could get layout-wise. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's valuable to have such a basic design. It's basically just a big circle with 4 pillars, 2 near each team's starting space. What definitely helps this place is the environment, as it's located in the incredibly scenic Nagrand, parentheses Outland. Sort of. Legion updated the graphics, which I'm grateful for, but obviously it doesn't match as much anymore. There is a WoD equivalent, but it leans more into the Gorian architecture. Also, apparently there used to be a little gust of wind that would spawn, and if it hit you, you would be slowed and damaged. Weird. Good idea to remove it. All in all, very basic, but if it works, it works. 10th place goes to Enigma Crucible. Added towards the end of Shadowlands, this one is located in Zereth Mortis. Aside from the waiting areas that you cannot go back up to, it's just a giant hexagon, with 4 pillars located in the inner reaches. The closer pillars for either side are comprised of a trio of hexagons, while the further pillars are just 1. Originally, the console thing in the middle was going to be interactable to change the pillar configuration, which does sound like it'd be kind of nice for exposing the enemy, but ultimately an interactive element probably isn't wise for Arena. Blizz ultimately dropped the idea though, and we got just a basic pillar setup instead. I do really like the atmosphere. Zereth Mortis is definitely one of the more unique, yet still beautiful environments in the game. But as with a lot of modern arena maps, it's held back a bit by the announcer, Zosorg, rambling off way too much. Oh, and funny anecdote, I once spawned into the arena proper instead of the waiting area and could run over by the enemy team. I think it's because of what I was doing when I accepted the cube hop, but didn't try to replicate it. It's not like it really helped me anyway, but it was funny. 9th place goes to Hook Point, added in Battle for Azeroth and located in Borealis. Aside from being present in the open world, it also features as the area where you face the first boss in the Siege of Borealis dungeon. This one always really stuck out to me, as it's possibly the only arena that just straight up isn't symmetrical between both sides. Ruins of Lordaeron may also be an exception, but that one's a lot less obvious. But here, you've got two pretty flavorful pillars that might be equidistant from the starting spaces, I'm not sure, but one side definitely has more immediate access to those two skinny walls. Does it make a huge competitive difference? Probably not. Does it irritate my OCD? Absolutely. I also don't love small or skinny line of sight breaks like this. This map also comes complete with its own announcer, Daniel Poole. Fun at first, but he gets annoying pretty quickly. Still, despite all those reasons to dock points away from this map, I really like it just for its setting. Just move one of those walls over by the building and make Daniel shut up a little bit. In 8th place is the Mugambala. Introduced alongside Hook Point in Battle for Azeroth, this one is located in Zuldazar. It's pretty fun and pretty unique. The total space here is quite large, with big waiting areas, a massive downstairs with an almost as massive pillar, and a sizable upstairs area, accessible through mirrored stairs and which you can just jump down from. I personally tend to hang out downstairs, but things certainly don't always go that way. In fact, upstairs-downstairs shenanigans is probably my least favorite part of this place. But I actually really enjoy the massive wall. It adds a gameplay element that only one other map even kind of replicates. No half measures here. If you're hugging that pillar, you're committing to the act. Also, Zuldazar is just very scenic. You even have Brutosaurs eating leaves next to you as you wait. This map also features its own announcer, Jestry the Untamed. He can get annoying too, but not nearly as much as Daniel. In 7th place we have Empyrean Domain, added in Shadowlands and located in Bastion. This map is also more or less used for the Kyrian Covenant feature, Path of Ascension. While the arena is octagonal and while you are basically whooshed into the area from your starting platforms, the whole place kind of boils down to Nagrand Arena, but bigger. For real, you've got your 4 pillars, but otherwise it feels like you can run for miles here. I kind of have to knock all of the Shadowlands arenas for not doing much mechanically different, but also, dang, if this place isn't beautiful. So, even if it is practically a knockoff of Nagrand Arena, I enjoy it more. Or just miss it more. Add it to Solo Shuffle, Blizz. In 6th place, we have the newest arena map, Cage of Carnage. The War Within gave us this one, located in Undermine. In fact, it's the same area used by the Gobfather world boss, the Underpin Delve boss, the Florendo and Torque encounter in the Liberation of Undermine raid, and Dastardly Duos. It's slightly modified here, of course. You start out above the arena in cages and get dropped down into the fray, which is fun. Then you've got a big diagonal platform leading from either team's near left to their far right. The edges of this eye-shaped platform are ramps, and there's additional ramps sort of crossing the eye. Lastly, there are 4 pillars, one on either side of the eye, and one in each of the empty corners of the arena. My matches always tend to occur largely around the eye, so I almost forget about those last 2 pillars entirely. It's definitely a unique map. The platform can make knockbacks particularly useful, but I feel this map mitigates it better than Circle of Blood or even Dalaran Sewers by having more access points. I don't know, I tend to have more fun here even if I do occasionally get screwed by knockbacks and line of sight. I also enjoy that there's a sludge side and a beach side. And unlike most announcers, I really like Naminze Boltfingers. She doesn't get old nearly as quickly. 5th place goes to Ashamane's Fall, added in Legion and located in Balshara. Balshara actually got 2 arenas located inside it. That's kind of crazy for any zone to claim when we've only had 17 total. Anyway, the layout is extremely similar to the Tolviron arena that we'll get to. The only real differences that I know of are that it's circular instead of square, and the north pillar with the Ashamani statue is rectangular instead of square. And visually, it's beautiful. Lots of natural greenery and soil in the arena itself, with some scenic water surrounding you, along with the trees and the cliffs leading up to High Mountain. A nice area to be in for sure. Add it to Solo Shuffle, Blizz. Next up, in 4th place, we have Tolviron Arena. This one was added during Mists of Pandaria, but is located in some theoretical location in Uldum. Other than the waiting room, it's just a large square with 3 large statues serving as rectangular pillars. A lot of the development pictures for it show 4 pillars, but that seems to have been changed before it went live. Probably because it would have felt too similar to Ring of Trials. And generally speaking, I really like this one, despite its simplicity. The environment and its color palette is very easy on the eyes. I like that it's got a lot of wide open space, but that the pillars that do exist are large as well. I'm just realizing that I hate small pillars. Luckily, none of that here. My one real complaint about this one is with the doors that open at the start of the match. They open upward so you can move right away, but your camera is likely tilted down a bit, so you're kind of moving blind for a few seconds. I mean, it's very brief, and it's easy enough to know which side the near pillar is on, but it still bugs me. Just a bit. The bronze medal goes to Circle of Blood. Here we have another introductory arena map from the Burning Crusade, and it's certainly the more interesting of the two. The map is basically a big square, not a circle, so they should have called it the Square of Blood, but whatever, with teams starting near the corners. There are double-sided ramps on either side, with a bridge connecting them, and with some pillars to provide line of sight where these two elements connect. Originally, there were two pillars flanking the middle of the bridge that you could jump onto or run across ropes to. This lasted until late MoP, when the pillars were replaced with ramps, which I have to say was definitely a good move. It can already be a huge advantage getting the high ground with the bridge. Getting on top of one of the pillars as a caster could be immensely useful because of just how tricky it could be for melee to get to you from the ground. The ramps just make everything more balanced and frankly simpler. And it's not as if the map isn't still one of the most unique ones from the pool. In fact, I believe it's the only map where one player can literally be above another player thanks to the bridge. And knocking other players off said bridge is just really, really fun. I imagine it's perhaps one of the less balanced maps, but I don't care. This map received a visual update in Legion, which made it look much better, since Blade's Edge Mountains is kind of a hideous zone. Speaking of which, it, or at least its original version, did have a presence in the open world. Also, I think the revamp gave us our first announcer in the form of High King Malgar. Like with most of the announcers, he's fun the first few times and then kind of annoying after that. But he's not the worst one. Still, a great map, and I wish it were in solo shuffle. Our runner-up is Maldraxxus Coliseum, added during Shadowlands and located in, surprise, Maldraxxus. And similar to Crucible of Carnage, this place got used quite frequently. Aside from the leveling questing and a good number of world quests, it was also used for this arena and the first and last bosses of Theater of Pain. But in this iteration, it kind of boils down to almost being another Tolviron arena knockoff. Like, we're even back to all square pillars. The only difference seems to be that the starting areas are more askew and not directly opposite of each other, and that there's a third such area equidistant between them. That's about it. But that doesn't mean I don't still enjoy it. Really, its layout being uninspired is the only thing I have against it. When it comes to actually playing Arena, I tend to have a pretty good time here, at least as much as I can when PvPing. And of course, it's extremely fitting that this got used as an arena. Like, it's literally the main Coliseum of Maldraxxus, where Grandmaster Vol is constantly announcing fights. They kind of had to use it. But that brings us to our grand winner. In first place, the Robodrome. Added in Battle for Azeroth, this one is located inside Mechagon City. Its area is also utilized for the first boss of Operation Mechagon, Workshop. And it's ultimately a fairly simple one. Just a big circle with two large wedge-shaped pillars and a third, larger wedge ramp pillar. That's it. I'm not always a fan of ramps, but I think it works here because it's so large and centralized. Also, this one's a lot more fun to jump off of when you're chasing someone down, even if jumping instead of running is probably disadvantageous. Whatever. It's also just a fun environment. Really, I don't have much of a reason for this one ranking as high as it did. I just like it. And maybe miss it, since it's also not in solo shuffle. And that's all of the currently implemented arena maps. Honestly, having to critically think about them all, there's more variety in their layouts than I expected. Even so, there are a bunch that boil down to very slight variations of 3 or 4 pillars. More variety would certainly be welcome. These rankings feel super arbitrary and subject to change just because it's hard to form strong opinions on any of these fairly samey maps. Also, more arenas in general would be welcome. Arena has been part of the game for like 19 years, and yet we've only had 17 maps. Come on, they're not even big maps. At least one per year, Blizz. Actually, it's probably way trickier than I feel like it would be, so I'll shut up. As a side note, I should acknowledge that I kind of gave line of sighting a lot of flack in this video, which feels a bit hypocritical, because when doing arena on my hunter, I would often win 1v1s when it came down to it by running away and letting my pet chip away the enemy, sometimes taking 20 minutes to do so. I got some pretty angry whispers. Still, no regrets. It's just that I heal solo shuffle instead now, so my preferences changed. Frankly, I would love a map with 0 pillars, where line of sight is just not something I have to worry about. You can balance it out by adding one with 30 pillars or something. Both sound fun in their own way. I'm not even joking, it'd be hilarious having to stay directly on top of my team to avoid getting LOS'd constantly. And lastly, because I don't know where else to mention it, I want to brag because I hit 2111 in the War Within Season 3, which is way above what I normally hit. It's a fluke and I was freaking out and I don't expect it to ever happen again, but I'm proud regardless. That's it. For this week's drawing, it would have made a ton of sense to go with the Robodrome, but I'd already drawn Erasmin and I didn't really feel like drawing King Mechagon, so I decided to go with second place, Maldraxxus Coliseum, along with the most important Necrolord character, the Primus, who I don't believe ever actually appears in Maldraxxus Coliseum. I am rather fond of the Primus. He's one of the more interesting Eternal ones, probably second only to Sire Denathrius in that regard. And of course, there is the perpetual speculation about whether or not he was supposed to be the original mastermind behind everything, evidenced most strongly by that piece of concept art that Pyromancer leaked out. I think a lot of players choose to believe that had Blizzard actually gone with that, it would have fixed everything, but in actuality, I think most players would still hate the Shadowlands plot. Adding an extra layer of manipulation doesn't necessarily make anything better. But who knows? We don't, and we probably never will. Also, while we're talking about the Primus, I do want to shout out the awesome moment where he comments on us bringing his sigil to Torghast, basically straight to the jailer that we're supposed to keep it away from. And he just cannot believe that we were that stupid. That doesn't make it okay that we were that stupid, but it does make it funnier. Anyway, I was really satisfied with how this one turned out. It's actually a lot better than I expected, especially considering how convoluted of a design the Primus has. But a pretty cool one, honestly. I like the old man pointy nose thing for him.
But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next week. Bye-bye!